Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max, where we continue working on the mighty AT-AT Walker kind of sort of style vehicle. Alright, now let's see, where I left off before I was kind of detailing all this stuff back here, and I wanted to kind of move forward with the detailing, literally, toward the forward of the head. So let's see here. What can I do? Well, we could put this funny little strip thingy on the side here, and this follows the contour of the great big dish shape. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple of ways. The way I would do it is, first off, let's take a look at the wireframe. Do I have any geometry that I could use? It looks like I do. It looks like I could probably get away with grabbing faces and just get like this guy and hit Q to get that arrow out of my way. And maybe even one more. So use all these. And then grab the move tool and hold down shift and drag out a copy and clone it as an object. And then get out of editable poly mode, because now we want our new addition to the family. Now, let's grab edges and this edge and let's loop those. Now, actually, we don't want to do this at the same time. Let's do one at a time. So loop, and now let's see. Make planar. Let's try making planar in Y, and that looks pretty good. It's not exactly flat in the up and down sense of the word, but overall it's actually looking fairly nice. So let's try that down here, and we will grab up here, make sure that we loop. It's hiding way up here. Thank you. Loop. And make planar in Y, thump, and that looks pretty nice. Now the whole thing could be shrunk down a little bit, so I'm going to switch over to edge constraints and then slide all this up and make the whole thing thinner. Now let's get out of editable poly mode, and let's kind of look at this sort of edge on. Actually, it doesn't look half bad. I mean, it does look like it's sloping down just a little bit, but not by much. I mean, we could maybe just rotate it up just a tiny little bit. And maybe not. Maybe just leave it just like it was, Zach. Yeah, I think we'll just leave it exactly how it is. But anyway, you see we've got the basis for our shape now. So let's jump over to faces and let's grab extrude. And we'll pull this out. Not by that much, just by a little bit. About like so. And I'm digging that. I think that's going to work out pretty well for us. I'm going to sink that in pretty far, though. So let's click OK, and then I'm also going to do a bevel. And let's just start off by zeroing everything out. Let's do just a little bit of height and a little bit of outline. Just sort of round things. And click OK. Now, if we take a look at this picture, there's also some funny little, I don't know, plate thingies that are, they look fairly important, that are stuck down there to the bottom. Now, I'm gonna get them in there, but they're gonna be kind of faked while we're at it. So let's just, well, I guess there's no such thing as faking something. You're either modeling it or you're not. Well, we're gonna model it, but in kind of a quick, dirty trick kind of way. So let's do an extrusion, and not much of one, just a little tiny one about the width of whatever we want that plate to be. Click OK, and then we don't want that plate. I'll just grab all the rest of these and let's extrude one more time and click OK. Now, let's go back to our faces. Let me get the rotate tool kind of out of my face. And we want you, and you, and you, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy too. And we will hit bevel. Now let's zero everything out once again. And we'll get just a little bit of height. We're going to go by local normal. And not even that much height. So just a little bit of height and a little bit of negative outline. And click OK, and then let's grab these guys all the way around here and do the same thing. And now we've got those plates in there as well. So press F4 to kind of get out of the way, and there you go. Now we can jump in, grab the element, and make sure we set those smoothing groups down really low so that everything looks nice and rounded. Yeah, I think that works. I mean, it gets the idea across. Okay, so let's see. Let's grab this guy all by himself, if it will let me select it. And we'll slide that right back into the dish. Like so. Easy peasy. And there you go. So that was an easy little detail to jump onto. Now, what else? I want to round out this thing, this funny little extension. It's just killing me that it's not properly chamfered. So let's fix that. And press F4, I can see these edges a whole lot more easily. And yeah, we don't need to chamfer those. Let's just grab these guys first and we'll chamfer a little bit. Not that much, just a tiny amount. Click OK, and 4, grab U, hold down Control, click Edges, chamfer again. And thump. And that looks pretty nice. Click OK. So get out of there, press F4 to make that kind of fade off. And now we should be able to see, yeah, we can see the detail on that a lot better. That one single beveled edge just makes all the difference in the world. Now, there's a little bit of chamfer there. This guy, how are you doing? You're a little chamfered, you're a little chamfered. Okay. So overall, things are coming along. Let's go back over to our picture. Now, I'm not worried about this. This is where the gun's going to mount. And when we get to the gun, then that'll be a little more of a deal. Now, we've got this plate here, which is actually the result of a recession into the armor. So there's actually a groove instead of a plate all by itself. Though in pictures like this, it really does look like an additional plate. You could probably do it either way. I mean, if you wanted to just make a thin little plate that sat on the outside and provided an edge, I'm sure that would be just peachy keen. Or you could do kind of a combination of both, where you could make a groove and then take that inner plate and pull it out, which is what I think I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and get that in place. Now, if we're going to make a groove into the shape that we've got now, we've got to make some cuts. So let's press F4 so we can see the detail that we've got, and we can see how messy some of this detail really is, which, you know, that's okay. What I'm going to do, though, let's see, we got this edge here. Let's make use of this. So let's grab vertices. I'm going to make sure that edge constraints are active. And we'll zoom out a bit. And this little baby vertex right there, we'll just slide that down. And what I'm looking for is to get this edge and this edge fairly parallel. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, you kind of want it to be as close to perfect as you can get it. I mean, just you kind of run your eye down it. That looks really close, actually. I think I can go with that. Now, this is where things start to get kind of cool. What we need is a nice straight line that will cut down through here, and I'm just going to cut a brand new one instead of trying to move stuff around and make stuff work. That just sounds like more work than it's really worth. So, let's find our cut tool. And bump. Now, let's see here. Let's go from right about here to right about there. Again, I'm just making this parallel to the leading edge there. And say there, click, right click, and that should wrap that up. Now let's anchor off those corners. So we'll anchor that off, and we'll anchor that off, which should help the chamfer out a little bit. Now this is going to go back, and then it's going to slant upward into that disc area again. So I guess right about here we could just grab and make a cut that goes back into an unseen edge in here, right click, and we're good. Now here we need the same thing. We just need to find an edge that it can tuck into up here near the top. I'm just going to wing it. We'll say from U to say right about there. And there we go. So now we've got a nice edge that we can use for a groove. So let's grab that. And we don't want to cut anymore, so make sure you right-click 20 times to make sure that you're not in the cut tool anymore. And we'll go all the way up here. And that's not the straightest line in the world, is it? That could be better, he said. So let's do this. Let's grab you, and hit Z. And I'm going to zoom out just a tiny little bit. Let's grab vertices. And all I really want to do is make that into a straight line. Make sure we're still using edge constraints. We are, and that's good. So, yeah, that'll do. That's much nicer. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to get like overly picky there, but I wanted that edge to look nice. Or at least nicer than it was about to look. Now, if I loop this, what do we get? We get a lot more than I bargained for, so let's not loop this. We will select our edges manually to make sure we get exactly what we need and nothing that we don't. And there we go. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's chamfer these guys apart, and that looks pretty good. That may be a little on the severe side. Maybe somewhere right around there will do. And click OK. Now, what I need are the... Ooh, yeah, that's nasty. That's not good. And that comes from not anchoring out that corner up there because the chamfer didn't really know where to go. So we need to fix that. So let's grab our cut tool. And let's get you. And I'll just cut more or less straight up. Maybe give it a little bit of an angle. And we'll just cut all the way across the ceiling. Okay, now, get out of the cut tool. Let's deselect these edges. We should still have everything else selected. So let's try that again. And this time we'll pay special attention to that little problem area. And chamfer. And that looks pretty messy, but I think we can play ball with it. Let's go ahead and just click OK. Let me grab this guy by himself, and let me chamfer this. And it doesn't want to chamfer, and the reason for that is probably something to do with what's going on back in here. And that has a backside to it. So let's see. Let's grab you. Can I just get this disc, please? And that would just be most excellent. And let's see if I pull that away. Actually, hang on just a moment. Let's go ahead and check the view. That's at negative 47.777 in X. So if I want to snap it back there real quick and easy, like all I got to remember is that number. So let's slide that out of the way. Yeah, see now that's problematic. So let's fix this. Now, I still think I can play ball with this with a little bit of target welding when I'm done. So what I'm going to do is grab my cut tool. Let's drop... Actually, let's make sure we're on the correct object. So let's get out of here, grab you, cut tool, drop a vertex, say right about there. And we'll just connect it like so. Now let's grab target weld on our vertices. And we'll just connect that down there. Now, if we grab this edge and we try to chamfer it, there we go. That's a lot more like what I want to see. Now, that does warrant some cleanup right up here, but that should be pretty easy at this point. So we'll click OK, grab vertices, come down to target weld, and let's just kind of start, actually that alone probably just about did it. Okay, so now, get out of edible poly mode. Let's grab that nice little disc thingy, and we'll punch this back over to negative 47.77, and that should put it right back where it belongs. Alright, some funny normal issues going on here. I'm not going to stress that at the moment, though it'll probably become an interesting thing to tackle. Actually, you know what? One single target weld will probably clear that right up. So let's come back over here to this guy, vertices, target weld, and you go right up there, and that should make that all happy again, which is what I want to see. So you, and you, and you, and you, and I could probably grab an edge loop, or edge ring, excuse me, and convert that over to faces and have all this stuff, but I just want to be a little careful on this one. And so we have this guy right here. Oops, make sure you're holding down control when you're trying to make multiple selections. It does make things a little easier. And let's see, now you and you, I think that's everybody. Are we missing someone over here? No, looks good. Okay, so now let's extrude this inside a little bit. Actually, you know what, let's bevel it just for the fun of it. But we want this to be a negative bevel, so we'll pull that in just a little bit with a little bit of a negative outline, click OK, then do an extrude. And sink that in, and now we have a nice gap. Like so. So let's press F4, have a look at that. Oh yeah. Now if we want a difference in elevation, that should be fairly easy. Let's see here. Let's grab polygons by angle, and this would be a really low angle, so let's say 10 degrees. And it'd be nice if it would cut that off at a border, wouldn't it? But that's alright. Let's deselect. We'll grab these by hand. It's going all the way back there, isn't it? Well, I guess it should, but I can stop it from doing that as well, which I think I'm going to do here. So let's go back over to vertices. Let's press F4 so I can see my edges. And let's get this guy, once again, kind of out of the way. And all I'm going to do here is grab a cut that is going to run from all the way up here to all the way down here, just to make these into one great big planar face. It's a little dirty, but it's dirty underneath another object, so I really don't care. Oh, make sure we're not cutting anymore. That's going to be important. And let's grab you, and you, and you, and you, and all these guys. Oh, and it looks like we nudged something, which I love that about Max. It's one of those little things that I kind of gripe about, is that I can move stuff without actually touching the manipulator. I'm sure it's just a mindset, and once you get used to it, it's no big deal, but to me, it's annoying. It would make sense if I had the selection lock, though. Okay, so now we've got all these guys selected. Now, I'm going to try this. Let's grow our selection by 1, and what that does is that grabs the inner edge of our bevel, which I kind of like and kind of don't. So I'm going to undo that. We just won't worry about that bevel. Now, let's shade everything back up. Let's grab our move tool, and very, 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 very gently, we'll slide this out a little ways. So we have a little bit of a difference in elevation. So now if we press F4 to get rid of all that, we have our plate, and our plate actually sticks out a little bit further than anything else. You know, we could probably make it stick out even further. Let's see if that looks in any way decent. I hit Q so I'm not moving stuff. I don't have to. And move. And let's see, let's do something that's noticeable from about here. Oh, you know what's going on? We are still constraining to edges. I mean, now, if you guys have been watching me model in Max, you guys know that that bites me fairly often. It seems like no amount of reminding will ever make me forget or ever make me remember to do that. I always blow that sooner or later, which is probably why this guy didn't pull out so nicely. So, let's see. Can I undo all the way back to this move? I'll give that just a second to fire those all off. Again, we gotta kind of put up with that direct 3D, which makes my viewports look really nice, but it just murders the undo cue. So all of these selections have to be stepped back through, but I would rather do that and make sure that everything hasn't been kind of knocked off kilter, so to speak, by that edge constraint. Now this should grab everybody, and then everybody should kind of nudge back in, and there we go. So now let's turn off our constraints, and now we should be able to just pull this out. And let's just take a look at that. So back to editable poly. Yeah, and we can actually see, we get two effects here. We actually get the raised panel, the thicker plate, which is very nice, but we also get a groove around the outside to kind of show off a shadow. Okay, so now if we come back over to our picture, we've got some little highlights that we can stick around. And we've already got some objects that will probably work really well for those that I brought over in a previous video. So let's just shift drag a copy of this out, and let's see. We're going to turn it catty corner and stick it right underneath there. We got one we can use as a handle up here, and then we can change the scale of them. So, yeah, just making sure. Now, my angle is a little smaller than theirs, but I think my satellite sort of dish thingy, half dome, is also bigger than theirs. So I'm just going to kind of go with it, not stress too much about it. Let's do align to face, click U, and then U. And let's see, if I rotate that, that looks good. Maybe it's a little more. I love modal windows. Now, let's scale that down a bit. So I'm just going to pull that down like so. Get the move tool out, and let's move it in local space. Wrong guy. So send that back. Selecting through gizmos, my favorite thing in Max. Alright, so you, come on, there you go. And there we are. Now let's shift drag a copy of that out. So if it'll give me that back, let's just shift drag another one. And this can have whatever name it feels it needs. Let's make sure we keep it selected. One of these days I'll get used to actually tapping the spacebar and locking my selection, but that day is not today. So let's see here. If I put this guy right about there and we frame up on it, I can probably rotate it in local space. And yeah, that'll probably start to work out really well. Let's see if we can scale it up uniformly. And take another quick look at our picture. So we can slide it up here somewhere. We can slide it back into the surface. We can rotate it a little bit. And we can scale it. Now what happens if we scale locally? We can thin it down a little. And then rotate it a little more. And that's looking pretty good to me. So let's get out of there. And yeah, details. Okay, so now if we move on past that, we have a similar kind of panel right here on this shape. Now if I jump over to polygons, I can highlight the one I'm talking about right here. Now this will be a whole lot easier for us, fortunately. We can just do an inset and then pull that in, say to right about there. And then we can do another inset. Let's press F4 so we can kind of see what's going on here. And that looks pretty good. Let me undo that, though. I'm actually going to do that next inset manually. Well, through the settings is what I mean to say. So right about to there, click OK. And let's hit Q and grab these faces. And we'll do a quick bevel. And that looks pretty good. And do an extrude. Also looks very nice. Now we can grab this polygon and just get the move tool out and slide this out just a little ways. Just to give a varying level of thickness there. And then we can go out to editable poly, press F4 to hide everything. And there we go. So that has a nice panel as well. Alright, now jumping back over to our pictures. We're kind of working our way around everything. Now, that's a pretty good shot, at least to this side. And we're starting to run out of actual detail that we could model in, unless we start making it up, which we could always do. This all looks pretty good. Actually, we could do this little collection of stuff that fits right up in here. You know, yeah, let's just wing that. Let's just totally make that up as we go and see where it gets to. Okay, now, if I wanted to create... Let's do this. Whether or not this works out well, I have yet to see, but let's draw a box with auto grid on. And let's just do something like this. And we'll add considerable thickness to it to sort of help us out a little. Now, let's rotate that. Actually, let me double check that rotation because it kind of lines up. So it's kind of parallel with that back wall back here. So if we can get something that, well, yeah, it'll just be something we'll have to play with and make it work. But let's make some changes here. The width of this guy I'm going to pull down. And let's also slide it back a little bit. So sink it in. Also, that raises a point of curiosity. Yeah, to make it look cooler, let's increase its overall length so it goes through both ends of this. That'll just look nice. Which means we can then convert it over to an editable poly. We can grab this. No, actually, that's not what I want at all. I want this guy that we just ended up creating a moment ago. Thank you. Now, let's bevel that a little bit to get some rounding. That's a crazy kind of bevel. We don't want that kind of bevel. So we'll pull that up. Now let's pull this back down a little bit so we get a nice sense of rounding and we can figure out our height from there. Click OK. Now to make this into something that kind of fills in the slot and looks similar to what we're getting on our image planes, let's go to the good old array tool once again. I'm not going to worry about my final count. We're just going to kind of make that up as we go. But let's increase our total in X. Oh, we need to hit preview. I was like, well, of course you're not seeing anything, dude. Alright, and then pull down Z. Actually, Z is going to probably stay pretty nice all the way across. Now we can just step up the count. That's looking pretty nice right there. And we can probably increase the Z. Let's try 0.75. And what I'm trying to do is make the row of them sort of parallel to this edge in here. So let's try 0.5. That looks pretty good. And I think that'll work. So let's click OK. Oh, those could have extended a little bit, but that's all right. Let's see if I can get away with just sliding them down. Yeah, it looks like that's going to work out. Now, let's select all these together. Hit M and drop on our material. We'll go ahead and close that. Now, I'm going to slide these back into the shape a little ways. And, you know, they do create kind of an upward slant right there. I'm not the world's biggest fan of that line that's being created by those. But it's not necessarily killing me either. Let me see if I can just kind of slide some of the shapes around and make that sort of go away. Looks like I may need to slide them down too, because it looks like we may be exposing... No, we're not. And it's all in my head. I thought we were kind of showing off the rounded end, but in the end I guess we're not. And we have a nice looking vent, which kind of follows along with what's going on in the image. And then it looks like some of this, either that's some artifacting taking place there, or there really are some blocks that kind of fill that in. I'm going to do a couple of things. I don't know how well this is going to work, but it's one of those where I have to try it so I know. Let's grab all this, and we'll slide it back so it's not quite so deep. Now, let's also grab you. Let's go back to create. Let's make another box and put that in auto grid as well. And let's see if I start it real carefully right here. We get that, which I can slide over. Rotate a little bit to kind of make it sort of actually what I need to do is skew it. So let's do that. I gotta convert it to an editable poly anyway. So we'll slide this down. Grab this guy and let's just do a bevel. Actually, I'm gonna thin it out first, so we'll pull that down, then bevel it. And that's just a crazy kind of bevel. So a little bit out, a little bit in, click OK. And let's get out of editable poly mode. Let's drop on our material because that's important. And I'll slide that back in a little bit further into the shape. Drag out a copy so it kind of looks like it's supposed to be there. And it's kind of made up, but, you know, there you go. There's some detail to play with right there. All right, now back over to our picture. We could use a couple of those little handle guys like this up here. So let's see if we can make some of those. So shift drag this up here and click OK. Now let's frame up on it. And it's already pretty close to where it needs to be and how it needs to be oriented. So we'll rotate that in a little and then we'll rotate it down. Now it looks like it's parallel with the top of that opening, and my opening, the whole thing here is kind of straight where it probably shouldn't be. It should slope downward. So let's see here. I'll just kind of get the best of both worlds. Let's just pull it up here where it's really close to the top edge. I'll sink it in a little ways, and we'll just go with that. Now let's shift drag out another one. Pull this down, slide it out. And then it's really just a matter of getting it placed properly. So say right about here, and then we'll rotate it. All right, so awesome, rockin', definitely coming together. Is there anything else in that vicinity that we could tack on? Yeah, sure there is. We can grab one more of these, and we can drag it over here. And let's rotate it to where it's primarily vertical. Shove it into the shape. Pull it down, scale it a bit. And I mean, the truth is you could probably cover the surface in these, in all kinds of little random locations, and it would just help things have more of a feeling of detail. But I just happened to see something like that over here, so we just stuck something on. All right, so I think we are to a point where we could kind of start to move away from this side of the head and start to take a look more at the front. So let's see what we can find there with the little bit of time we got left. So let's see. Some of these were already some workable pictures. This is very workable. We could definitely take this and put it some good use. So let's see. If I press F4 to show off my edges, we've already got some edges that will work out really well, but I want some stuff that's pretty straight down the face of our object. So you see we've got this. This panel is very easy to make, but we just got to think for just a moment about putting that in right there, that little raised area. Now, just like all the other panels, I'm going to make this with a groove on the outside, so we'll actually cut it into the surface. But you don't really have to do that. You could just make a panel that sat right on top, and it would probably look just as good. Probably. So I'm not going to do that, but if you're following along and you want to do something a little quicker than I'm doing it, then that's certainly a way to go about it, I suppose. Now let's grab you, and then maybe slide this guy out. I just want to get that nice and parallel with the edge, or at least as close to it as I can. That looks pretty nice, and then we just need a little raised area there in the middle. To make that happen, let's see, what I'm going to do is just make a cut. Say right about where we think it needs to be for now. Now, I don't know whether or not this is going to do exactly what I want it to, but let's try it anyway. If we align this in X, probably won't do exactly what I want at all, but since we've still got edge constraints on, if we grab the local axis for that, we might be able to squash it. No, not in any way that makes me happy. So we're just going to assume that's as straight as it needs to be, just to make my life easier. I mean, I suppose we could probably... Oh, we had two of those selected. Well, that would always be a problem, wouldn't it? Let's see. That took care of it. That's what I wanted. So we'll pull that into right about there. And all of that does taper in. In fact, what it looks to me like is that if we wanted to get downright technical about it, this might taper in a little bit more than I've got. Well, no, probably not. I followed the blueprints, and I know I've been diverging here and there from them, but I think we're okay. So let's do a couple of quick cuts to get the basis of the shape down. Now, let's see. If I jump over to the top view, this may be a little easier because I can just hold down Shift and do a nice cut straight across, like so. And I can do the same thing from here, so we can cut, hold down Shift, and jumps right about there. Now let's go back over to our perspective view, and voila. Now, we got one more to add in, so let's grab U, hold down Shift, And okay. All right, now let's grab some edges. Actually, you know what? Let's try this a different way. Let's grab faces instead. I'll grab both of these guys, and let's bevel them. I already see where I'm not going to like the result of that, because I don't want to clean all that up. So let's just cancel that. No, thank you. All right, let's try this with edges. Now, before I try to chamfer all this out, there's some considerations. We should cut that out to the corner so we can get a better miter-ish style of corner. Maybe even pull that away, which I think I'll take care of that here in just a moment. This. Ooh, I have a great idea. Let's do this. Let's grab you and we'll pull you inward. It's a little bit of incline to that I'm not really a fan of, but we'll just go with it for now. And let's see, let's make another cut. It's right about here, and then we're going to run this over to this corner. So I have a nice miter corner. This probably requires a cut like so to help it out. So we'll just kind of cut that down. Now let's just see what we get when we try to chamfer this. It's either going to work or it's going to explode and I've got to fix it. So let's chamfer, and it kind of went more along the lines of explosion. But not horribly, nothing that I can't work with. So let's see here. If we deselect that and don't worry about that edge for a moment, and we deselect that so we don't worry about that one either, the rest of this is passable with a little bit of cleanup. So let's go ahead and click OK. And then we'll grab this guy and this guy, and let's see if we can chamfer those by themselves. And they're acting really funny, so they've probably got some issues that need cleaning up. However, what I can... Well, no, I can't really do it that way. Alright, let's just grab you. Yeah, it doesn't want to chamfer at all, but that's alright. What I'll do is I'll just handle that manually. Let's jump over to the top view. Let's grab the cut tool, and I'm just going to cut straight across, like so, as cleanly as I can, and then we have the similar problem up here. We'll just also cut that as carefully as we can. Now, let's go up to vertices, and let's check out our target weld tool, and we can clean that up. Now, let's make sure the edge constraint is still on, and let's grab you and slide you down until that looks nice and parallel. That should clean that. Now this is interesting. We'll extend that up, and then we'll extend this up until that looks clean. And we can probably, well, let's just leave that alone, see if we can get away with it. So perspective. So we should now have some faces that we can get our little indentation with. So now, ooh, that's interesting. That would explain our funky little chamfer, wouldn't it? See what's happening there? We got this little tiny, like razor thin, just a couple of pixels. You might not even show up on your video. That we need to clean up here. So let's see if I zoom in on that guy. Yeah, that is indeed a problem. That's remarkable. And the easy way to fix that is pull it back so we can kind of see what we're doing, and then just cut that straight over. And then we'll just target weld it over, and everybody should be happy. Okay, I'm hoping that didn't happen. Oh, look, it happened right in here, too. Well, no wonder that was acting funny during the chamfer process. Okay. So let's fix you, slide over, grab cut, cut over like so, target weld, boom, fixed. Alright, looking good. Okay, now let's try this again. So back to polygons, and it still shows a poly right there. So let's just delete that. Looks a little interesting. Well, let's just see if it works. We'll just give it a go. Okay, and let's bevel that in. Okay, let's extrude. Looks good. Let's grab faces. Here, here, and here. Now, let's see. If we local that, we get kind of a normal style motion, which will be good. And that, of course, won't work because we're still on edge constraints. So give me a round of applause for that one. Let's turn that off and slide this up a little ways. So I have a little bit of an elevation. And we could probably go further than that. Not that far. Somewhere right about there. Okay, and let's jump out, press F4. So we can see what things look like without all the wires. And there we go. So we've got our little plate right there as well. So I think we're at a pretty good stopping point. We've actually started working on a new area of detail up here at the front of the head of our vehicle. So that is going to wrap things up for this video. I wanted to give a big thank you out to all of our member sponsors who make everything we do possible. And I will catch you guys on the next episode of Modeling on the Fly with 3ds Max.